Good afternoon. It's good to see you again. We have now started the recording, so that is the public part of our meeting. There is a little drawing there on the side that we will use for our guided meditation and practice. So don't worry about that yet. I will tell you a little more. The topic of the day is presence and responsibility. We have been looking at the basic concept of presence or self-remembering as the third state of consciousness, that is above the horizontal sleep, above the vertical sleep, we can feel our presence and be there. It changes several things. And we have been exploring several topics under this new light of what happens if I do this usual thing when I am present. Now, today we want to explore the connection between presence and responsibility for our own actions. We have been saying that if you are in a state of identification, that is, if you are not present to yourself, you do the only thing which is possible based on your mechanical connections inside your personality, so your egos, so to speak. So, for example, if somebody tells me, you look fat, I always reply, why are you telling me? It's not true, regardless of the fact that maybe it is true, or maybe that I should just shut up and consider what to do in order to lose some weight. So mechanical means there is no choice. There is no way I can actually respond differently to this remark. Maybe that's a remark done with an intent to help me. Maybe it's just to tease me. Doesn't matter. If I am identified, that is, I am sleeping although I have my eyes open, then I will do the only thing which is possible in that moment, considering my mechanical psychology. And in this case, it is a bad reaction. On the other hand, if I am present enough to feel myself in that moment, I have a choice, and I may actually consider seriously what I'm being told. Maybe I do need to lose weight, or maybe not, and I can just dismiss this as just a joke. But I do have a choice. That is the difference. So imagine that in a moment of identification, I say something which hurts somebody. Having seen the situation, do I have a responsibility for what I'm saying? Or do I not have a responsibility? So the obvious answer, considering what we know so far, is there is no responsibility by the consciousness. It's just like a machine that has been put in motion, and it does its mechanical movements. So if an apple falls from a tree and hits my head, will I consider that the apple is responsible? Well, yes and no. If the apple wasn't there, then I wouldn't be hit, yes, but I cannot really say the apple chose to fall. There came a moment where its connection with the tree became weak enough and gravity won the fight and the apple came down. So I wouldn't even dream of saying the apple is responsible. So by the same token, if I was in a moment of identification and I get angry and I say something mean, then we might argue that I'm not responsible. By the same token, if somebody is mean to me and I am able to put myself in his position, something we called external considering, if you remember last week. So if I am able to see things from this person's point of view, I might discover, well, first of all, that maybe there was a good reason why he or she said something mean to me. And also that this person was probably in a state of identification. So there was nothing else she could say. Now, considering this, shall I still make internal accounts towards this person and internally accuse and say, but she told me that, she shouldn't have. I will never forgive her because that really hurt me, and things like that, which are our internal environment, are really a poison for our psychology. And they are just as mechanical as the original action. So if we are not able to leave the state of identification, we continue doing this internal considering, which is launching accusations. And we are unable to see the other person's point of view. So we lose the opportunity to understand and to forgive. So at this point, we have touched a pretty delicate matter, which is, are we able to forgive somebody? And let's not forget that if things go as it is spelled out in the Gospels, we will probably be forgiven by the same measure in which we are able to forgive. So if we have an old friction with somebody and we continue to nurture that memory and that accusation to that person, then we might, in the same way, have done something maybe 10 years ago, and somebody is still accusing us inside his heart. The two things are related. Well, let's start from what is more clearly under our control. So how can we imagine the idea of forgetting in this new light? There are books, there are videos that teach us some processes to say high-sounding phrases like from now on you are completely forgiven. Or in my heart there is no more resentment towards you, and so on. Now, from my point of view, and in the light of what we have been seeing so far, creating these new statements in our mind is just adding one extra layer of complexity and of artificial connections on top of a situation that is already complex. Because we may say what we want in a certain moment, but then after 10 minutes, we are a different ego and we have completely forgotten that we had forgiven. So the old account comes back, and again, we are accusing. So we need a new concept of forgiveness here. Let me propose you something. I'd like to say, and I would invite you to try that for yourself, that we are really forgiving an old misdeed or trouble when we have stopped feeling resentment. And we stop feeling resentment because when it wants to emerge, we detach from it, we retreat in our presence, and we don't feed it by getting into that. So if I remember when that person said that thing to me, instead of drawing from my chest of old accounts the accusation and reliving again that moment when I say, you shouldn't, I don't do that. I just observe it and I realize that I am higher than that I have no need to do that again, that I am a totally different level of being from the one that needs to repeat accusations all the time. So basically, if I take out the noble part of myself and I detach from the temptation to continue to accuse, then this, let's say, poisonous content of my consciousness gradually shrinks and eventually falls off and disappears. So once I don't feel the need and the temptation to continue this endless repetition of old stale accounts and accusations, then the forgiveness has taken place. So it's a gradual cleaning. And if you ask me how long it takes, then I'd say, you tell me how intensely you work on yourself, and I will tell you how long it takes. So if you work intensely, then it may take a very short time. Let's say that it takes a few moments of consciousness that are focused on the same topic. And if you can have them in, say, a few consecutive days, then you can disassemble and stop feeding this little monster inside, and it will just vanish. Because if it doesn't feed on your energy, it has no life of its own. It can only be a parasite of our own consciousness. So you just stop feeding it and it will go away by itself. Other ways, like high sounding phrases like "you are forgiven, don't worry, I have nothing against you," that is just ourselves trying to look good in the eyes of ourselves again, or somebody, if somebody is listening. That is an extra ego that we add on top. Now, do you really want that? Do you need that at all? See for yourselves. Among all the people, though, who can deserve forgiveness, there isn't just the neighbor, there isn't just the others. Sometimes we have strong accusations against ourselves as well, for things we did in the past and we consider wrong. And that brings us the internal prosecutor inside our consciousness that keeps telling us, you shouldn't have done that. You have ruined that relationship. You have ruined that business or whatever it was. And that may be a real ballast, something very heavy that appears continuously in our mind to draw us down, to lower our vibration, if you speak in these terms. Do we need that? Does it do us any good? Of course not. So why is it coming so often? Well, possibly because we feed it. Again, if we are able to detach from that when it comes, say that old thought of, oh, I've made that mistake and I ruined that relationship. When it comes, I need a moment of ding, ding, waking up. And I need to just retreat in my presence and see this thing for what it is. It's just a thought form. It's just an aggregate, a parasite living inside my mind. So just let go of it. Next time it comes, it looks a bit smaller, doesn't it? It wants to be taught in my mind. Permission denied. I'm not thinking you anymore. And it grows smaller, and so on and so forth, until it becomes just a memory that you are free to recall if you want. But it doesn't assail you when you don't want, because that is the problem. We may consider, oh, this is just a memory. I remember that because it happened. Well, if it's at your service, if it serves a purpose for you, then it's fine. But it should be available when you call. It shouldn't be jumping at you all the time when you don't want to make your life miserable. So, in a nutshell, when somebody behaves badly, it's too easy to judge and make a harsh opinion about what happened. The word that means bad in Italian from Latin is cattivo. Cattivo is from Latin captivus. And literally, captivus means prisoner. In other words, in the wisdom of certain words, there is a clear connection between the fact that when we behave badly, we are prisoners of something. Say an ego, say a demon, say a jinn. In the Eastern countries, they call it a jinn, a bad spirit. Whatever it is, if you are prisoner of something bad inside, then you will carry out and enact some sort of bad behavior. This sort of point of view is like imagining that everybody has a good nature at the very core, and if bad things happen through this person, it's because it was hijacked by some let's say parasite or bad habit. There are other ways to see reality. I acknowledge that. Let me just say that I prefer to assume something good unless the contrary is proved, because this makes my life a bit lighter. But of course, I'm ready to change my opinion in exchange for some good evidence. So far, this holds. I was revising my notes. I think we may consider this as the core topic, and then we will be able to share what we have to say about that in the second part of our meeting. Now, for those who are interested in the meditation that we are going to do in a few minutes, let me just say that if you're able to see the doodle behind here, a little drawing, is going to be about a person inside a diagnostic machine that looks at her heart. Then we will visualize what happens and what is shown. More on that for our members of the group, but for all our friends who just view the recordings, keep in mind that you are welcome to join the group. Just write to us. You will find our email address written in the description of the video. So you may join if you want. We would like to hear from you. Otherwise, just keep watching the recording, and hopefully that will do you some good. So we are now going to stop the recording and continue in the second part.